Now we have a production plan Y, which in the small y is technologically efficient. Therefore, suppose there is no y prime in y. That is, in y we have only this y. There is no y prime in y. Okay. There is no y prime in y, rather in y we have only this small y. Then we can say that y prime is greater than, then we say that y prime is greater than y, and we have studied in the input combination function that if y prime is greater than y, it means that the subset of the production function will not lie into this function. Therefore, if y prime is not in y, then we say that y prime is greater than y. And now a production plan is efficient if there is a way to produce more output with the same inputs, or a way to produce the same output with less inputs. Okay. Now production plan efficient कब होगा? If with the given level of inputs the firm is producing higher level of output. Okay, that is if the input level is same but the output level the firm is producing is higher. Or in the other way we can say that the firm is producing the same level of output with fewer units of input. Suppose we have this Q. A firm can utilize more of capital and more of labor to produce the same level of output, and a firm can also, if it is an efficient firm, it can utilize the least amount of capital and labor to produce the same level of output. Then it will show that the firm's production plan is efficient. Or what happens is that if with the same amount of input the firm is producing higher amounts of output, then the firm is also efficient. Every firm prefers only an efficient production function. Every firm will move towards the efficient production function, while with the lowest amounts of inputs it is producing the highest amount of output, or it is producing the higher units of output with the same level of inputs. Therefore, the transformation function in this case can be written as, now for this we will have T, okay, is such that this is for transformation function. We will have an Rn which will lead us to R. Okay. Now where T of y is equal to 0, transformed output का जो function है, it is equal to 0, then it is possible that y is efficient. Or it is possible only when y is efficient. Production function picks out the maximum scalar output as function of inputs. Okay, the same thing that I stated over here. Transformation function picks out the maximal vectors of the net output. It takes the maximal vectors of the net output. That is, with the same level of inputs, the firm is producing more output, or the same output is produced with lowest amounts of inputs. Now, what is the activity analysis in the production function? For this, we need to assume that there are two inputs which are required in the production function. The first input is labor, the second input is capital. Okay, we are assuming that there are two inputs which are required in the production process. The output is produced using the factor inputs, that is labor and capital. The two different factors of production now perform two different activities. Labor and capital, they L and K, are both used in different proportions in the production function. Either labor can be used in higher proportions, either capital can be used in higher proportions, or they can be used in the same or similar proportions as well. Capital cannot be used for the labor-intensive task. If it is a labor-intensive task, more of labor will be used instead of capital, and in the same way, labor is used for the specific. Labor cannot be used for the capital-intensive tasks, because a labor is a person whose supervision, if required for quality control or any other activity in the production process, then that can be done by a labor. Better. Sometimes more machines can produce more output, therefore instead of utilizing more of labor, more of capital is used. But sometimes the quality of produced goods matters, therefore the technology is taken into consideration. But over here we have only two factors, that is, one is labor and the other one is capital. Now, for example, in the labor intensive techniques, 2 units of labor, suppose we have a labor intensive technique, 2 units of labor and 1 unit of capital are used to produce 1 unit of output. Okay, suppose we have a labor intensive technique, and over here a firm is utilizing 2 units of labor and 1 unit of capital in order to produce 1 unit of output. Let us say that in a garment unit a machine is required for 2 workers. That is, over here this interpretation is that one machine is required for 2 workers. They perform activities such as sewing and cutting of fabric. Now at the final stage, one worker can produce a shirt by joining different parts. In the capital intensive technique, what happens is that suppose we have capital intensive technique, then two units of capital are used and 1 unit of labor is used. In order to make prints of a draft, computer and printers are required. Okay. Now what happens is that the print of a draft has to be made. Now a computer is required and a printer is required. Such units are called as capital intensive units. Now 1 unit of labor is enough to make the print of the draft, because this unit of labor can utilize the printer or computer in order to make the draft. 1 unit of labor is enough to make the print of the draft. Therefore, over here the more units of capital and less units of labor are required. But without the printer, the printing of the draft is not possible. If there is no printing of the draft is not possible. In the modern world, firms produce a number of goods with different combinations of labor and capital. Now there are thus a number of possibilities of firms' production sets. There are different possibilities. The production possibility set implies 2 different sets of production. Now, we can define Y as the set of combinations. Suppose we have Y is the set of combinations, which is given as Y is equal to 10. Okay, now we are making the set of combinations. It is 10, 10 and 20. Okay, brackets closed. The other bracket opened. Now 10, 20, 10. Okay, bracket closed. Now if we assume that the firm is using the input requirements such that then such a set can be written as V of Y, okay, is equal to now 10, 20, that is this one, okay, 10, 20, bracket closed. These are the units of labor and capital, and 20, comma 10. Now the input requirement is 10, 20 and 20, 10. The input required for the production of goods is represented by 2 subsets. If this is labor and this is capital, okay, this is capital intensive technique. If this is again labor, this is capital, this is labor intensive technique. These are the input requirements for the production functions. Assuming that the production of Y requires different combination of inputs, we can write the possible combinations then in that case as V of Y is equal to Y comma 4Y, that is देखो 1:4 input का combination है over here, and the other one is 4:1 input combination, 4Y and Y. Okay, bracket closed. The equation shows that there are 2 subsets and 2 possible production functions. Suppose we write it further as, अगर हम इसको, if we simplify it, now the input requirements of the production functions will now easily become V of Y is equal to A. One input combination is A and the other input combination is B. Now the use of the use of technique A will require, this is the technique A, it will require Y for Y input of two factors of production. The use of technique B will require 4Y and Y. Secondly, using the B type of technique requires 4Y, Y, okay, input factors of production. Now such techniques and combinations are shown in the given diagrams, where I'll make them over here. Suppose this is the first one, this is the second one, okay. First one is showing that more units of capital are utilized. We can see that the regions are lying somewhere over here, the points. The second one is showing that more labor is utilized, the points are somewhere over here, okay. And the third figure, what is it showing? It is showing a simple downward sloping curve. It is assumed that the firm will either use technique A or technique B, okay. Okay, let me specify this also. On y-axis we have the output, and on x-axis we have x, that is inputs utilized, y, x, okay, and y and x. Okay. It is assumed that the firm will either use technique A or technique B to produce output. Output is indicated by y, okay. The y set is now shown to be different and given in the following form. Okay, then different numbers are given for it, 244288. In the above set, there are different combinations. The last combination explains that 8 can produce an output, produce 1 unit of output. That is, if Vy, sorry for this, let me write it again. If Vy is equal to 2, 4, okay, this is one input combination. Then another input combination is 4, 2, okay, and the last one is 8, 8. In the above set, there are different combinations. The last combination explains that 8 can produce 1 unit of output. This topic is complete over here. For today, our topics are complete. After this, we will move on towards the monotonic technologies in our next lecture.